Well, hello there and welcome to the bedroom of the dollhouse for another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Hugh Stelfers for March 10th, the day of the Soul Searchers. That's right. And here at the top of the page is a visual representational image of the day of the Soul Searchers. We have us what appears to be boom, a candle holder without a candle. All right, might be ostensibly a searching for as much, if you like. That says that's an adequate representation of the day of the soul searchers. Hey, maybe, just maybe. That said, not altogether all too important, the visual representational image. I just like folks to kind of see what's on the page so they have an idea of what dynamics are going on off camera, if you like. That said, what is important around here is it's March 10th, and so hence it must be somebody's birthday. So if your birthday is March 10th, I just want to say happy birthday. All right, that's what's important around here. But if this video finds you late, well, I hope you had a happy birthday in that case. But for everybody else who's joining us randomly, I just want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Now, before I dive in with the redirect, something I like to do around these here parts, and that is roll some dice. So if you've been here before, you don't want to sit through it, well, just skip ahead in the chapters to get to the read. But I'm going to be here, rolling some dice. That's right. I just want to live up to the namesake of the DykASSt birthday broadcast here, but do so more importantly for synchronicity's sake. That's right. And I rolled us a 2 and a 4 for a 6. Now, what is synchronicity? You might be wondering if you haven't been here before. Well, my friends, as I hear it told, the universe or the higher powers that be, if you like, will oftentimes put things in our path to help us manifest our goals or realize our aspirations. But a lot of the times we got the blinders on to what's going on around us, so we may not be apt to notice such things as they occur to us. All right, so this is a little bit of an experiment to help us take those blinders off and start recognizing the things the universe is laying out for us. All right, but how do we do that? Well, we need some kind of a mutually agreed upon sign, if you like. That's right, daily numbers. That said, you don't have to go with the numbers I rolled for you. The intention is there, but it's advisable you get your own set of dice so you can get out in the world and kind of let the universe take the wheel. All right, you're gonna ascribe directional values to number sets as well as time limits with which to go in those directions. But once you have all that established, just pick out a place maybe near and dear to your heart or some place you'd like to explore and head on out. But that said, get those blinders off, all right, and start soaking up everything around you like a sponge, because you never know, the day might start to take on a little bit of a theme. All right, take the visual representational image there. Hey, maybe you start to see candles in a lot of interesting places, maybe places you wouldn't necessarily see candles, or people just walking by you with them. Hey, you know what, a little bit random, I would say. That's it. Doesn't have to be candles, it can be just about anything. That's why you got to keep your eyes open. But that said, also, you never know. Maybe you see advertisements for this random thing that keeps popping up, or just some kind of it's in a storefront window oftentimes, all right, or it's a mural on the side of a building, a sticker that some slaptagger put up on the side of a transformer box. You never know, but I'm just trying to tell you, it doesn't have to be the literal thing in that regard. That said, you get out after your first time value and the direction to go in, and hey, you know what, maybe you're not seeing much of anything. I don't know, just take things in stride. It takes a little while for us to acclimatize to this idea, but step back, maybe take in your surroundings, and maybe you just so happen to notice you're on what's this, 24th Street. And you know what, I would take that as a sign you're on the right path. So roll your dice again, get your next directional value time limit going. Maybe at the end of this one, you find yourself in front of, what's this? Somebody standing on the corner of a street, and they might just so happen to have, a 24 on, say, a shirt they're wearing. You know what? Hey, again, I would take that as a sign. But in this case, maybe they're who you should be following, all right? Your white rabbit of sorts, if you like. So roll yourself a time value, give yourself a little bit of a buffer, and just see where they go, all right, for however long the dice say. Now, oftentimes I like to just kind of point out that somebody might happen to see you following them, all right? Well, you shouldn't have been stalking anybody to begin with, but here nor there, just be open and transparent about what you're doing. Show them this video, show them your dice, tell them that they were the most unique individual that was out there. They had the number that was on your dice, and that's the only reason why you're following them, because the universe was telling you, was compelling you to see where they were going. It might just so happen to find out that they It's their birthday too. All right. Hey, you know what? That would be very interesting, wouldn't it? Another synchronicity or coincidence, if you like, stacking up. And I often like to bring that up because if we bring in more people to these kind of affairs, you're apt to beget greater results because there's more people focusing on the same thing. So, you know what? I think you get the idea of synchronicity. Seeing things out there just start to stack up for you. And hopefully, if you get out there and try this out, you can see, taste, touch, smell, intuit even just a little bit of that kind of magic and understand why I brought it up for you. That said, I think you get the idea. So let's get on with your birthday reading, all right? Your month is March, your day is the 10th, your sign is 18 to 21 degrees, Pisces, of the Pisces II period specifically, the last day of it, I believe, and your quality and element is mutable water. Well, all right, March 10th, the day of the soul searchers. All right, those born on March 10 are deep emotional individuals. Their drive for success is often rather low-key, and they may be more concerned with understanding themselves and coming to grips with their complex personalities than they are with fortune, power, or fame. And this does not mean to say that March 10 people are overly self-involved or somehow self-indulgent. On the contrary, they love to have fun, particularly in intimate social settings with close friends, and are most happy when they occupy a central position in their families, surrounded by nurturing and protective influences. And the sensitivity of March 10 people is pronounced. They are easily hurt. They feel rejection keenly and want little more than to live in peace with their fellow human beings. However, those born on this day who have experienced traumatic childhood episodes, deep psychological wounds inflicted by a hurtful parent, or overly rigid moral systems placed on them early in life, can retreat from the world into a private, inaccessible emotional space and stay there. And because March 10 people are so sensitive, they experience the highs and lows of life as few others do, and therefore are more likely to turn inward and search their souls and try to understand themselves. And through this inner development, they cultivate empathy to the pain and suffering of the misfortunate. And for this reason, many born on this day opt for a service-oriented career. And the more highly evolved of March 10 people show great sympathy and kindness for others, even to the point of being self-effacing and saint-like. And as parents, March 10 people tend to be nurturing as well as understanding. But beware of a tendency to be overprotective and subtly manipulative. Interesting. Generally, March 10 people put personal considerations before anything else. And also, since they are highly developed in the emotional realm, they may not develop their willpower and mental toughness as fully as they might. Consequently, they can drift or stagnate, not having the strong desire or ability to better their circumstances. And for the less talented or gifted of March 10 people, qualities of acceptance and passivity may not be so desirable. In putting emphasis on internal rather than external values, March 10 people are oriented toward an idealistic, non-materialistic value system. And yet they nonetheless display a great need for security and a marked desire for simple comforts, which become more evident when advancing in age. The danger here is that they will stagnate and fail to carry their personal development any further. And it is true that their exploration of inner emotional worlds, theirs and others, it says in parentheticals, deepens their sensitivity and makes them more soulful. But they must not use this activity as an escape from expressing themselves outwardly or making crucial decisions. All right. Quite the dynamic birthday breakdown for sure. And I mention that because, this is a very specific kind of day. And on this particular kind of day, they tend to hyper-focus on one particular theme and then expand out from there. And I would say that was apparent here to some extent, but not nearly as much as other days that fall in this particular dynamic here. Any event, let's dive into a little bit of a commentary I like to provide. We can get into what I'm talking about here. All right, here we go. March 10, the day of the soul searchers. All right, you're deep emotional individuals, and the reading claims your drive for success may be subtle, as you may be more apt to focus on understanding yourself and finding ways to reconcile what's said to be a complex personality. Which is interesting because I didn't really pick up on that too much, but maybe it's there nonetheless. Doesn't matter if I picked up on it or not, right? But it is quite fascinating as a culmination of self-awareness is an overarching concern for the book writ large, all right? And it's very seldom when someone can be said to take a direct focus on as much over all else, all right? Also that you may recognize that you're a complex individual. That's very interesting as well. The reading also makes a point of specifying this doesn't mean that you're self-involved individual either, which is rather interesting to me that it's mentioned, considering that wasn't even a thought in my mind. It's just that, hey, you know what, you're concerned about your well-being in a way. That said, neither was the idea that you'd be a fun-loving individual or social types, despite that being mentioned. So it's not as though I'm not myopic in other ways, all right? I don't know why it wouldn't mean that you're not a fun-loving individual. It just, it was early in the read, and they started getting into all that other stuff. Not a thought in my mind about as much. In any event, your sensitivity, however, is said to be quite pronounced and particularly influenced in social matters, to the extent it could affect you in ways where you may retreat into your own private world. And while the reading qualified this in terms of childhood trauma, I reckon it may extend further of how often this specific dynamic has represented in the period. To say it comes up very often. But this pronounced sensitivity sounds like the exact reason why you may be apt to focus on understanding yourself. So it's not all bad, I would say. And it may benefit others in the bargain if empathy is a common result of said analysis. Also, if you find yourself drawn towards social work, I would say, helping other folks. Though ironically, from the sounds of it, you may let a little bit of this empathy and awareness go if, as the reading says, when you're parents, you have a tendency toward overprotection and subtle manipulation. Very interesting, I would say. And I'm assuming this is probably something that's based on historical precedent, to say other people born in this period are kind of known for having done it. So that's probably why it gets brought up. It's not something that comes up very often. The reading also makes mention of your highly developed emotional side, perhaps leaving willpower and mental toughness at a deficit. Also, the dangers of focusing on internal values for very valuable concerns to consider, I would say. For someone who, for all intents and purposes, is strong in so many different areas. All right, so don't neglect where you can improve, I would say. A lot of times they talk about the negatives, and it can kind of like pull the reading down, I would say. Hey, it's just an opportunity for areas to improve, for things to go reflect upon, I would say. And for someone who's said to do a lot of analyzing of their own self-nature, hey, might be right up your alley. That said, I didn't get into why this was a very specific day, but we will here shortly as we move on to your numbers and your planets. All right, here we go. Let me get the book more centered here for you before we dive in. Let's get it. All right, those born on the 10th of the month are ruled by the number 1, as 1 plus 0 equals 1, and by the sun. Those ruled by the number 1 generally like to be first, which in the case of March 10 people may mean putting their feelings first. And the sun often grants the qualities of a warm and well-developed ego, with distinctly human, positive orientation to life. And since those born on March 10 are Pisces, they are also influenced by the planet Neptune, which lends a romantic cast to the sun's radiance and may indicate a tendency to be a bit scattered, impressionable, and fanciful. All right. By and large, this was a little bit of a copy-paste job. Some things they put in there. They might influence a little bit of the notes here, also the breakdown itself. But I'm not going to try to burn down everything I might have to say. Let's get into it here. The number 1 in the sun for qualities of a well-developed ego and a warm and distinctly positive orientation to life. And so I said what I said previously because this well-developed ego was something that they said you might not have, that you might need to cultivate. So maybe it's an example of something to drive up to in those respects. But I think it might have just been an oversight on account of the fact they copy-pasted it in there. Outside of that, I would say it was a pretty highly personalized numbers and planets because they had to put in that Neptune dynamic, not something that often presents. In any event, I would argue this flies in the face of a typical sun-ruled day dynamic, as such days are usually hyper-focused, like I said, on one specific dynamic, and then they expand out from there, always tending to relate to the same said theme or focus with what they're talking about. Here I'd say that dynamic is expanding and cultivating and understanding your own individualism in certain respects. But this empathy and the concern for others and everything that's baked in with that just kind of defies that same said focus, I would say. So you can't necessarily be hyper-focused in this respect because of all that constitutes what comes with that. Excuse me. So in my mind, this is a very unique sun-ruled day indeed. But with Neptune being the planet of dreams, visions, and an eye for romanticism and higher ideals, and the planet ruling this period, it makes a certain kind of sense that this dynamic would exist, by my mind. Just not why every other sun-ruled rulership day that's come up has been so hyper-focused, but maybe this romantic radiance that paints the sun because of Neptune's influence is just that powerful. What's also interesting here is typically with the Neptune dynamic, folks are either very focused on a higher ideal or a cause, or that higher ideal is themselves. And I would say for you, it's kind of both, all right? You extend out that self-individual analysis to other folks. And so I think you're getting the best of both worlds in that respect. Because like I said, it's an either-or proposition a lot of times with Neptune. In any event, that's what I'd say about your numbers and your planets. So let's move on to your tarot. All right, your tarot card. One of the more eclectic of the New Age metaphysical ideologies, but it's here in the book. Sometimes you can make further connotations and see other things that line up. So let's dive into it, see what it has to say, and then we can just leave it in the book and move on. All right, here we go. The 10th card of the major arcana is the Wheel of Fortune, which symbolizes the ups and downs, wins and losses, and successes and failures in life. And those ruled by the number 1 and 10 focus on seizing opportunities. Indeed, acting at just the right moment is the key to their success. And the card signifies a reversal in fortune and teaches that there is nothing permanent except change. All right. This one's always a little bit concise in what they say. Not oftentimes do they impart much, but what they did do, they did impart a little bit of something else here for you. This part where they said those ruled by the number 1 and 10 focus on seizing opportunities and acting at just the right moment, being the key to their success. That's not something that they often throw in there, so they personalize it there for you a little bit. That's what I have to say about your tarot outside of what I've already said, all right? The Wheel of Fortune, it's a once-a-month card, and it symbolizes the ups and downs, wins, losses, and reversals in fortune for lessons to be learned, as they said. Nothing's permanent but change, and for an emotional person who rides the highs and lows, I'd say this speaks to such qualities quite aptly, all right? Just mind turning too far inward lest you miss the opportunities, right? And the key moments which are integral to your success. So mind the stagnation or the lack of a desire to better your circumstances, I would say. And also the passivity that they warned against in the breakdown. I would say, ironically, that's a bit of an active way to promote, falling in with your fortune there. Even though passivity and stagnation are inactive, if you employ them, ironically, it's an active way to go against it. So that said, I think you got it. I just wanted to reiterate something I thought was interesting that I spied there. So anyhow, let's move on to your health. All right, here we go. Those born on March 10 often have a low resistance to harmful elements in their environment. Many are not only prone to various allergies, but are also a bit too sensitive to the negative energy of others, which can work to their detriment. Building a strong ego is the basis of their psychological development, even if later in life they wish to dissolve it in selfless pursuits. March 10 people can suffer from a variety of chronic disorders, usually involving the nervous or the circulatory systems. Retaining fluid may be a particular problem for them, for which they should seek medical or homeopathic advice. And since they are comfort-loving individuals, March 10 people generally enjoy a wide range of sensual experience. And those born on this day must pay close attention to their diet. Particularly recommended are whole grains, fresh vegetables, and a lowering of dairy and meat intake. Regular exercise is strongly recommended, particularly long walks in the open air, swimming, yoga, or milder forms of aerobics. All right, this was a particularly involved health breakdown. I think they hit just about all the wickets there for you. Something they haven't been doing too often ever since back past the beginning of Capricorn. So they didn't do you dirty like they have some other folks, so to speak. That said, let's get into the health here. They're saying you're said to have a low resistance to harmful elements. All right, so you're sensitive to the physical things, not just emotions. This is a common occurrence in this period, as it turns out. Not all the days, but I'm just trying to say it has popped up. Folks that get the allergies, sensitive to their environment. This influence of others' negative energy, though, that's new. I haven't seen that pop up before, so that's a novel entry in that respect. Sensitive to other people's energy. Interesting. So maybe take note of as much. Another case, as they said, to build up the ego, despite the health saying, or the numbers of planets saying it was well developed there because of the sun. So there was another instance where it was like, oh shoot, there seems to be a disconnect there. But interestingly, they said you may want to dissolve the ego so that you can help other people in selfless pursuits. So it's kind of an either-or proposition, it sounds like, though I would make the claim, find a balance, all right? Balance being one of the earmark watchwords of the book writ large. That said, chronic disorders are mentioned, as well as a problem with fluid retention, and that's also something completely new. I don't think I've ever seen that in the book before. Maybe there's some kind of historical precedence for why they say as much, because I can't imagine how they arrive at that. Enjoyment of sexual activity, or sensual, they said, what we can assume, right? It's pretty common for the period, but specific grounding foods that they recommended, that hasn't come up in a while. And it's interesting that meat came up. I don't often see meat in this particular period. That said, they have mentioned to stay away from dairy on account of the Pisces body area being the lymphatic system, because it's not good for the mucus there. You got to keep the lymphatics flowing, and I guess dairy inhibits that to some extent. Though they didn't mention that, interestingly. So maybe take note of as much. And those foods they mentioned are said to help take Neptune people's heads out of the clouds, keep them grounded, and that is why they kind of came up with the exercises I think they came up with. Though that said, oftentimes those grounding influences, they incorporate vigorous exercise, all right? Kind of exercise all of that aggressive energy they may have pent up. But here for you, didn't get the impression you had that. So what did they say? Light to moderate exercise for you, something to ground you. In any event, that's what I'd say about your health. So let's move on to some advice. All right, that's right. More advice. All right. Don't deny your ambition, all right? Build a strong ego, once again. Learn to protect yourself from your environment without cutting yourself off. Remain open but attentive. Beware of getting stuck or materially attached. Materially, that sounds better. In any event, hey, that's your advice. Pretty valuable. It generally is. That said, they were a little redundant there because they're probably trying to hammer some kind of point home. All right. That said, what did I have to say about what they had to say? Let's get into it here. But bear with me. I had to write it in a book, and my writing's tiny. So, don't deny your ambition. Build a strong ego. All right. The emotion, take the emotion out of things sometimes, maybe. Rally to your cause for success. Okay. You can earmark a specific time for other subjectively important things, I would say. You're going to need the things that emotions can buy you on occasion. So, in building your ego, don't dismiss the emotions. There's people here that are too ego strong, and then there's no emotion baked into it, and so they don't have that balance. They gotta. What do you call it? Take the ego down, if you like. So, for you, it's the other way around, apparently. You're going to need that emotion, things emotion can buy. All right, so accept that reality for what it is, I would say. Hey, I just need to cultivate the ego. Let's get after it, all right? Also, things can often be more as complicated as we make them. So I wouldn't get down in the dumps about it. Just know it about yourself, all right? Self-awareness, cultivate a little bit of it. That's another earmark thing, carry through line for the book, self-awareness. And it sounded like today that was a huge thing that was in the soul searching aspect for. So right in your wheelhouse, I would say. What else do they have to say here? Protect yourself from your environments without withdrawing. Hard to do if everything seems to affect you or be out to get you, all right? But you can't harden yourself to a lot of the outside influences from the inside, right? To say allergies or other people's negative energy. You got to get out there and experience it, I would say. They said, beware of getting stuck or materially attached. Didn't get the idea that you were these things. Maybe I needed to read between the lines a little bit more. Outside of living in simple comforts and needing a little bit of security. But getting used to things is a general passive position, I would say, in any terms. And nothing is permanent except change, as we learned from the tarot. So be open to change, and in that respect, you won't be as surprised if you get or knocked back if things change on you, when and if it happens, right? Also in line with not stagnating, I would say, and avoiding bettering your circumstance. I'm not quite sure what. Yeah, don't avoid bettering your circumstance. There seemed to be a disconnect there for some reason for a moment. In any event, I would say keep fighting for ground, okay? And you're apt to develop that ego, that character, just in the effort that's baked into it. So probably not all that difficult. If you're out there struggling a little bit, cultivating that character, and the ego's bound to follow. If it's not in there already, you just have suppressed it a little bit because you're doing so much analysis, ostensibly. In any event, that's been your advice. So let's move on to your meditation. That's right, something else to think about for the soul searcher, as it were. Here we go. One soul may inhabit many bodies. Oh, very interesting. Don't quite know. Oh, I think I might know what to make of that. There you go. Once more, one soul may inhabit many bodies. All right. Your birthday, your meditation. I'm not going to try to throw my spin or influence it with you, but my interpretation on it. So it's just for you. It's your birthday. It kind of defeat the purpose of a meditation if I told you what I think about it. So in any event, your meditation in a can, as it were. Let's move on to your strengths and your weaknesses. That's right. Let's hold up the objective mirror, see where you got the girth and where you otherwise ostensibly a little more deflated or atrophied. All right. Your strengths, you're sensitive, you're empathic, and you're soulful. All right. Soulful might be a first. It very well might. Interesting. But your weaknesses. Oh, let's hold that objective mirror back up and flip it to the side that blows up your face. That's right. Maybe shows off the things you're otherwise a little more superficially insecure about within the metaphor. That's right. Your weaknesses. Oh, you only got two. Interesting. It says long-suffering. Oh, and withdrawn. Okay, you know what? Maybe I missed the mark here. I maybe I just breezed over it. I didn't think you were long suffering. That's why I talked about it, to cultivate that self-awareness and build up the ego. I wonder if there's a disconnect maybe on the book side of things. It's probably mine. I just brain farting it. But that said, oftentimes I like to make the case that our strengths are going to help us get over our weaknesses, all right? But I also like to make the case that our weaknesses can sometimes be strengths. I've been struggling the past week and a half to make that case, but we're going to give it the college try here today. Let's get into it here. Your strengths, how can we improve upon our weaknesses with being sensitive, empathic, and soulful? Well, if you're sensitive to such things, again, it's just going to come into your natural wheelhouse there. Self-analysis, that's self-awareness. You're sensitive to everything that's going on. Hey, you're going to pick upon what's going on with the weaknesses and maybe how to improve upon them. And if you can't figure out how to improve upon them, at least knowing about them, you're going to do so in a passive manner at least. It's better than nothing, I would say, all right? Empathic, all right, you're picking up on other people's pains. You're assuming what they might feel like, or not assuming. Empathy means you know about it, all right? Sorry, I was mixing up sympathy with empathy. Hey, if you can pick up on other people's feelings and know what they're about, you're sensitive to as much if you like, hey, you know how to relate, all right? That's a huge strength, I would say. Now, turn that in on yourself, all right? You can analyze things from a myriad of different vantage points. You were taking somebody else's experience and your similar experience. Maybe theirs was just a little bit different in the pain that they derived or the way that they came about overcoming the struggle that they had. And you can turn that in on your own struggle, your own issues there. I would say that's a strength. If somebody who just sympathizes, assumes what the issue's going on, hey, they're not going to have any idea how to approach improving upon that specific weakness, all right? But you will, because empathy, in my opinion, is a bit stronger, all right? That said, you're also soulful. Hey, you're going to come from a very deep, more analyzed place. I would say more true to heart as well. And when we bring that kind of stuff to the fore, when it comes to improving upon other things, it's just a more richer, diverse, more meaningful place to come from, I would say. We're getting into some of those Neptune qualities, those higher ideals, the romanticism of it. But hey, you know what? Well within the theme, I would say. Interesting, particularly unique strength, I would say. All right. But your weaknesses, what's the case to be made for them being strengths? Let's see what I can do here. You're long suffering. Okay, hey, we're coming back to that empathy again. All right. What did you get from being long suffering? Again, I didn't really pick up on this being the case, but again, I must have missed something. What are we getting from experience from being long suffering? All right, there's some empathy baked in there. There's self-analysis baked in there. I would say it's just improving upon our character and further endorsing that ego. But long suffering, too much of it. Oh, we understand what's going wrong there. It's putting you back on your heels, making you passive, inactive, more reactionary than... or maybe not even reactionary, you're just letting the things happen and becoming a punching bag. We don't want that, all right? But I would say long suffering means experience. And there's so many people who pick up on interesting ways to view the world, interesting approaches based on that suffering. They just can't let it get a hold of you and take you in a bad direction. That's the key there, all right? You got to use that as a tool in your bag. That said, you're withdrawn. This is a very common thing within this particular period. People isolate, they find their particular little cavity, and they just they hunker down, all right? They don't get out there. And I can see that for the weakness that it is. We got to get out there, socialize a little bit, pick up more tools to put in our bag, enriching the lives and the experiences that we have. There were some people who flourished in isolation, others who didn't. Your withdrawn could also be just from a social aspect. It might not mean that you hunker down or, isolate yourself physically. But that said, being withdrawn, being within yourself, inside a location, I would say you can use that as an opportunity to drill down on not just work, but understanding of yourself, self-awareness, all of those things. We just can't let it take the ball and run with it, all right? And just keep us being more passive and stagnate, all right? So I'm not making the best case for I think I am, but I'm just not getting the words out very well. All right, so being withdrawn, I can see it as a strength insofar as it allows you to focus on things and further drill down on cultivating the self-awareness and everything else that comes into the bargain in that respect. In any event, I think you get the idea. I'm running long here with all this. Those are your strengths and your weaknesses. All told, though, I also like to say, don't get rid of your weaknesses altogether because they're part of who you are. All right? So that said, your strengths and weaknesses in the can. Let's move on to those born on this day. When we get into those born on this day, something I like to do is not just see who shares your company, but use it as an opportunity to take inspiration to start figuring out our passions. All too often I get out in the world and meet folks and ask them what they do, and more importantly, if they like it. And a lot of times they don't, because they just got out of school or, earlier in their life, right into a job to help make ends meet. And at the very root of it, it wasn't something that they had any interest in. They just had to make those ends meet. And so I think this is a very important thing to do, is start finding something that we're passionate about in life, a purpose that we can drive towards. So I think this is the perfect opportunity for us to derive some inspiration, if that's something that's at a deficit in your life. Because if there's anything I can wish for someone on their birthday, it's that they're doing backflips out of bed, literal or figurative, in the morning to get on with their day, because they've got a purpose to get after. All right, I didn't pick up on that being a problem for you so much if you're coming in with the social aspects and the soul searching, but hey, maybe it is. And so if it is, let's take this as an opportunity. All right, let's dive in, shall we? We start off with Harriet Tubman, the African-American abolitionist and Underground Railroad organizer, and smuggled countless slaves to freedom. Union Army nurse, spy, and lived to the age of 91. All right, well-developed ego, I would say. A lot of strength, a lot of empathy, long-suffering, too, in the bargain, I would imagine. Moving on, we have Bix Beiderbecke, a jazz cornetist. It looked like an M in there. A cornetist, a trumpeter, a pianist, composer, and it says died of pneumonia and alcoholism at the age of 28. Oh, well before their time, it sounds like. Tamara Karsavina, Russian ballerina. It says Nijinsky's partner and a co-founder of the Royal Academy of Dancing in London. We also have David Rabe, a playwright, Pablo de Sarasate, a composer of gypsy music and a violinist, Alexander III, the Russian 19th century czar, and he strengthened the police system, and persecuted revolutionaries and Jews. Oh, so you know what? Sometimes they mix in the good or the bad with the good. I was about to say the good with the bad. That's not it. A little bad with the good. All right, we also have Marcellus Malpighi, an Italian 17th century naturalist, microscopic anatomist, and a namesake of structures in the spleen and the kidney. Interesting. We also have Arthur Honegger, Honegger, a French composer. Hornogay, perhaps. I don't know. Is the ER silent? I'm not quite sure. Any event. Sigrid Boris, a violinist of the Berlin Philharmonic, was also a concert master at the age of 20. We also have Shannon Miller, the U.S. Olympic 5-medal winning gymnast. James Earl Ray, Martin Luther King's assassin, and a career criminal and sentenced to life imprisonment. Wasn't a lot of empathy there, it sounds like. And again, they're mixing in the bad with the good. Jeez, they don't do it very often, folks. We also have Fu Tusong, a Chinese pianist. Chuck Norris, the film and TV actor, and a karate champ, it says. Kelly Quinn, the psychic, and it says died of cancer at the age of 36. A lot of people taken early in this day here. We also have Gerard Croiset, a Dutch psychic. Another psychic, interesting. Paul Wunderlich, a German graphic artist, sculptor. Barry Fitzgerald, an Irish film actor. We also have Paula Mason, a film actress and wife to James. We also have Hector Germain Julimard, a French Art Nouveau architect. Isaac L. Rosenfeld, a critic, essayist, short story writer, and novelist of Passage from Home, and again, died at 38. So there was a theme here today. I don't know if any of them had trouble retaining water, like they said, but there was like a historical precedent for dying early, being an artist or a musician, or somebody who wasn't all that empathetic to others, all right? Or long-suffering, perhaps, who's to say? But a very interesting born on this day, to be sure, all right? Despite my butchering the names, which reminds me, let's make up for that on my side of things. It's not done in malice, it's just hooked on phonics. Isn't the best tool to be using for pronouncing names, as you can see. That said, that essentially rounds out your birthday reading. I know it's a big-ass tall order to take inspiration from other people's accomplishments, but hey, you know what? In this case, we actually learned what not to do in a lot of circumstances, all right? So we can take that to the bank if you like. That said, I think it's important that people have a drive or a purpose to go after so that they can just get something fulfilling out of life. Because too often that's missing, all right? And they said some folks born of this day stagnate and they avoid bettering their position. Hey, don't let that happen, all right? Be the agent of your own change. You already got the tools, so I would say just get after it, all right? You just got to press play and show up, all right? And start fighting for that ground, I would say. But like I said, that essentially rounds out your birthday reading. Except to say your season is winter, your sign once again is Pisces, of the Pisces II period specifically. And your quality and elements is mutable water. All right, and this has been March 10th, the day of the Soul Searchers, from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Joost Elfers. I have an affiliate link for this book down in the description, right above a personal message I like to put together for the birthday boys and girls, ladies and gents. So if you want to check out the message, it's down there for you. But if you want to pick up the book, hey, that link will save you the hassle of having to type it in a browser. And you know what? It's going to help the channel out in the bargain, which I appreciate. But that said, not all together, all too important, the book. It makes an excellent coffee table book, and it's going to help you get the ice broken if you have a party or something where maybe, that's not a strength of yours, breaking the ice. Hey, let this thing do the lion's share of the lifting if you need a tool in your bag for that purpose. But that said, what's important around here, like I said at the top, wishing you a happy birthday. So once again, happy birthday. And for everybody else who joined us randomly or more ideally to celebrate, hey, I hope you enjoyed yourselves, took something of value. Hey, you know what? There's always something of value to be taken, I think. That's a little bit of that empathy we was talking about, or imagine ourselves, that sympathy is being imagine ourselves in a situation, all right? Any event, I think you get the idea, all right? So thanks for joining us. That said, I want to thank everybody for the pleasure of your time, and for the birthday boys and girls, it was a privilege to share your birthday with you, all right? So thank you once again. And lest I forget, before I take us out, your daily numbers, all right? Get out there and let the universe show you it's with you on your path. See, taste, touch, smell, intuit, even just a little bit of the magic I was trying to correlate. I think you understand why I brought it up, all right? It's important that we're out there seeing the things that are out there for us. And when you see it, let me tell you, you're going to be like, that was cool, that was cool. So in any event, once again, happy birthday, and take care of yourselves.